Someone sent me a message asking what I loved about European women, such as my wife, and why I chose a European woman to be my wife. It started with one shy woman asking me the question in my DMs. But then, when I made a public post about the topic, it got far more engagement than I was expecting from my target audience. Rolling my response around in my head before giving it led to far more engagement than I expected from European women specifically. And don't get me wrong, as I've shown in one of the screenshots, I absolutely find women of other ethnic or racial groups attractive to greater or lesser extents. Right? My first serious girlfriend was actually a Puerto Rican and Ecuadorian mix. Right? And I fell madly in love with her. Right? And I suppose if I hadn't seen beauty in Asian women, then I definitely would not have chosen Chinese as a collegiate elective or studied Japanese during my teenhood, right? So I am definitely the kind of guy who can appreciate a good car regardless of the manufacturer. So when it comes down to European women, out of the many choices and opportunities I've had while traveling the world, my selection of them came down to less of a reason to do with them in a counterintuitive Jungian fashion of psychology, but more of a reason to do with me, my self-awareness, knowledge, and self-actualization. So, as I explain my point of view on this, I urge you to completely, flat out, ignore or disregard the common pro-black opinions or talking points of why someone like me would go for a white or European woman. They think it has something to do with slavery. They posit this, they pontificate it, or that it has absolutely everything to do with slavery or holding something over other blacks, fuller-blooded blacks, with self-hatred. When in fact, with my archetypal psychology, all of those opinions are completely backward. All of those conclusions are absolutely incorrect. Right? I am not about self-rejection. I am about self-discovery, actualization, and acceptance. Human consciousness is not a monolith, especially not when it comes to the intricate complexities of the human genome and what that implies about recently racially intermixed individuals. The question presented was race-related, but I am worldly enough to understand how not every European is the same, in the same exact way that no other individuals, no groups of any other individuals throughout any other racial groupings are as well. Like every culture, every major racial group breaks down into varying derivations of ethnic groups, and those ethnic groups break down into even widely different individuals. So it breaks down into ethnic cultures and psychographic segmentations of the population, and thus arguable ranges of compatibility for cultural reasons. And it even gets even more complicated at the individual level, but for the sake of pragmatism, I will keep it at the psychographic level. All right, so now before I go into even that, let's back up for a second. My style of seduction or attraction is not to chase women, but to build one's value as a man and then select the best women that are the most receptive to you. All right, this is what I'm teaching my sons. When you take this approach, you end up with the women who genuinely admire you. At which point, it is your responsibility not to abuse the power they allow you to have over their minds and emotions simply because they admire you. And in order to truly do that, you have to be ever vigilant in your self-reflective sense of self-awareness. Because if you're not, your Jungian shadow will possess you, and you will abuse that person if you are not responsible with the vulnerability their admiration awards you. A guy like me does not chase women. Instead, guys like me work hard enough on ourselves, both physically, mentally, and financially, to attract fans or women who really grow to respect and look up to us. In that regard, it is they who choose me first, not I who chose them. They chose me, and out of the range of women that chose me, I then chose the best one who chose me within a pragmatic vicinity. All right, so with all that in mind, the reason why I chose a receptive European woman in sexual competition with Asian women, since we met in China, the vicinity, within that vicinity, had little to do with the European woman for simply being European alone. It had more to do with where I was at that point in my own self-actualization and self-knowledge. So back up. Forget women entirely. What kind of man do you want to be? What kind of man did I want to be? Even though technically it was a woman who asked the question. If I were to speak to other males, what kind of man do you want to be? All right. Given the hypothetical of fatherhood, what kind of father do you foresee yourself becoming? What kind of house do you see yourself leading? What kind of ancestral skills will you pass down to your offspring? And what will it take to teach them those skills? I am 100% the kind of guy who will take his kids out into the Alaskan wilderness to teach them hunting, horseback riding, martial arts, or freediving in a sub-zero Alaskan lagoon. And you can see my other videos of personal adventures as proof of that, from swimming in shark-infested waters to practicing martial arts shirtless in China while it was snowing. If I come back from a hunt or a spearfishing dive, which kind of cultural queen will embrace, appreciate, and respect me the most for doing so, with the least amount of judgment, the least amount of resistance, without needing any kind of explanation? Which kind of cultural woman is least likely to get in the way of the actualization of that kind of masculinity and fatherhood, and the most likely to support and nurture its actualization? And if she would get in the way, to what extent in comparison to other cultures? Around which cultural kind of woman can I take off my armor to be embraced and truly understood, held to cultural expectations that are in alignment with my natural capabilities and nature? In choosing which kind of woman to marry, which kind of woman is going to get in the way the least of me teaching the Old Norse ways to my kids? What kind of woman is most likely to encourage me to break out of the American one-drop rule mentality pertaining to Jim Crowian politics and cultural evolutionary psychology at the axiomatic basis for Pan-Africanism, and fully and truly support me exploring the full range of my heritage and passing all of it down? Who is going to give me the least headache when it comes to being myself as both a man and father? Considering the geographical environments I naturally refer to as home, it's going to be some kind of tough or rugged Asian, like a Mongolian, which I have dated. I have actually dated a Mongolian when I was in the military at one point. It's either going to be a rugged Asian like a Mongolian, or a traditional European woman of specifically the rural Irish, Scottish, Scandinavian, and or Eastern European variety. Right? And rural is the key word here, because an inner city woman, regardless of her cultural or skin color, is most likely to be resistant, or at least not as supportive of the lifestyle and character that is truly my personality or a match with it. Right? There are white women that will look at me like I've got 4 heads, and they won't know what the hell I'm talking about, and for going out into the freezing cold to hunt. Right? There are black women who would do the same. Right? There are Asian women who would do the same, especially when I was in Xi'an. When I had this conversation sometimes with other Asian women, and they thought it was adventurous, they thought it was cool on paper, but the actual prospect of living that kind of lifestyle by the sea, going and spearfishing, it's a lot for a lot of women. It's not for them, right? And I'm not judging them for it. I'm just simply stating the facts. Like, it's just not for them. Or living in the freezing cold of the Alaskan wilderness, or the beautiful but harsh winters in the mountains, right? For some women it is, for some women it's not, right? So it depends, right? And this is fascinating on a personal level, because I was not raised in a rural area myself. Becoming more rural was just in the cards of my self-actualization. It was part of my fate as I developed as a man, such as how spending 4 years in the mountains of the Chinese wilderness permanently changed me as a character. I unlocked parts of my personality that I did not even, parts of myself, parts of my soul that I did not even know were there. If you want to get super scientific with it, then maybe it was dormant genes that I unlocked. Who knows? They're probably maybe a combination of both. It depends, right? I'm open to all schools of thought pertaining to the interpretation of what happened to me in China, right? But in essence, regardless of your school of thought, I refer to both Joseph Campbellian and Jungian psychology when I refer to the concept of awakening awakening the sleeping princess. When a man comes to truly know himself, individuating his shadow, the sleeping princess awakens in response to the wholeness of his character. In that respect, my choice of a European woman had little to do with the European woman being European for its own sake, its own ethnic sake, and everything to do with the discovery and actualization of who I truly am inside, along with the positive associative memories I have with European women in general from how they basically raised me. I am both biologically and culturally the product of white women. So if I left the Shire and completed the full Joseph Campbellian hero's journey, the cycle of self-actualization, it would make sense why my respective contextual sleeping princess would end up being European if I was aiming to case select offspring and the development and building of a strong house. What kind of woman is the most receptive to who I truly am inside, thereby making such a European woman the contextually correct answer for specifically me and my inner peace? The answer would be different for someone else depending on what is culturally correct for them and their individual scenarios, right? And notice, zero of these reasons have anything to do with holding something above other fuller-blooded black people. It has nothing to do with colorism or some pathetic, shallow Machiavellian attempt to climb the social ladder with self-hatred. I can say all of this without saying a single negative word about black women or women of other cultures. Right? It is not a fetish. It is not Machiavellianism. It is not self-hatred. It is not about this or that hair type or this or that eye color. It is not about trophyism. Right? Dans le contraire, it is about genuine self-awareness and self-acceptance as I self-actualize. It has everything to do with just simply answering the self-reflective existential question of knowing thyself. Who are you truly? And can you be real with yourself about the likelihoods of who the types of women are with whom you would effortlessly connect? Who are the women who would be receptive to, understand, relate to, appreciate, and honor who that man is in order for genuine love to bloom in a peaceful home with the fewest amount of words needing to be spoken between you? And note, the very same women I am talking about would be toxic to some other dude who is not like me. The inner city woman would be correct for someone else. So it is not actually about the woman. It's about you, speaking to men. Actualize into your best self. Which kinds of women are admiringly receptive to or awakened by who that best self is as he is wrought from deep within you as you mature? The women who would otherwise remain hidden or asleep until the maturation of your character would awaken her. I am a totally different evolutionary beast from what my African blood once produced, which is where the deepest point in the disconnect is between me and other black people, particularly pro-black people. They are stuck in the past, trying to get people like me to be somebody else that would have been or once was, while willfully denying or requiring that people like me willfully deny that there isn't now other ancestral DNA influencing me from the inside out that I simply cannot keep ignoring if I'm to live a full life and tap into my deepest potential. So with all of this in context, what I love most about specific cultural kinds of European women is that around them, behind closed doors, I can be truly vulnerable. In private around her, I can take off my armor completely while knowing that I am appreciated and accepted for who I truly am, without judgment as the man my now mutated bloodline has produced me in the now. Not what once was, not what could have or should have been according to someone else's racial or sociopolitical agenda and bias and guilt-tripping tactics. Just simply, who is the man before you right now? What kind of sleeping princess awakens at the emanations of energy radiating from who that man is? And in my specific individual case, it's going to be the culturally unapologetic European woman who understands, embraces, and truly loves me most. No other kind of woman I have dated around the world, with nearly 20 consecutive years of vagabond-style world-traveling experience, has demonstrated that they can truly connect with and empathize with my contextual struggle with less effort and fewer words needing to be spoken to attain that level of connection.